This video made for History of English Literature final assignment. So, what did I learn from this class? In the 18th century, the 18th century called as the Augustan Age. This era is the time of enlightenment, the age of reason when all branches of science were developed and resulted in great technical process. The major writers of this era are John Dryden, Alexander Pope, and Jonathan Swift. Jonathan's writings characterized throughout by a subtle ambiguity, by a troubled delight in oppositions and rivals, and by a play with alternative voice, persona, and perspectives. A romantic period. In this era, politically dominated by the French Revolution, it has political quarterlies, the Edinburgh Review and the Quarterly Review, which in general stood in literature for the conservative 18th century tradition and violently attacked all. The literature turned again into sentiments, traditions, and exotic settings. High Victorian era. This era called as the Romantic Monologue, there was a revolution in commercial enterprise due to the great increase of available markets, and as a result of this, an immense advance in the use of mechanical devices. There were many talented women writers in realism aimed for an honest portrayal of her sensationalism, exaggeration, or melodrama, desired an accurate and detailed portrayal of ordinary, contemporary life. In naturalism, an offshoot of the realism movement, an intensification of realism, and used detailed realism to suggest that social conditions, heredity, and environment had inescapable force in shaping human character. The Late Victorian. This period was a time of growth and change in America. Advances in building technologies such as the development of balanced skeletons and architectural components built by a factory facilitated the construction of larger, more complex, and more decorative buildings. George Eliot is a critic and translator. Her realism involves a scientific analysis of the interior processes of social and personal life. The Edwardian period. The beginning of this period is in the 20th century. This era opens up with the British decolonization Boer War in 1902 was fought between England and South Africa. The political issue in this era was Ireland's people Catholic and wanted an independent parliament in Dublin, but the Protestants wanted to remain in English rule, so they refused to accept Home Rule Bill. The literature of this time is known for its use of philosophy, reason, skepticism, wit, and refinement, which frame purpose for the modernist period. Modernism era. Modernism is one of the key words of the first part of the century. It is widely used to describe the diverse trends in European and Anglo-American literature of the early 20th century. The year 1990 marked only a chronological entry into the 20th century. Many of the new tones of voice, the new anxieties and difficulties that we associate with the modern writing had already begun. The famous modernist authors and writers in this era are James Joyce, Gertrude Stein, Wallace Stevens, Ezra Pound, William Faulkner, Joseph Conrad, Virginia Woolf, T.S. Eliot, W. H. Auden, and Robert Frost. The 20th century. The world had moved into the atomic age with the dropping of bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. After the Second World War, the changes in society, in ways of thought, and in literature were every bit as deep and far-reaching as they were after the First World War. The mixed post-Darwin and postmodernism is indicative of the binary linking of traditional and new elements in literature. The subject matter is still essentially the human condition, but the means and methods of exploring it are infinitely richer and more varied than ever before. Last but not least, the 21st century. The defining event of the first part of the 21st century was attack on American targets, including the Twin Towers in New York on 11 September 2001. The attacks had a huge impact in every sense, emotionally, culturally, politically, all over the world. Many of major writers of our time happen to be women, just as many happen to be gay or born outside Great Britain or whatever else might distinguish or characterize them. The genre fictions in this era are crime and thriller fiction. What was the lesson learned of this class? The lesson learned of this class, I got much information about the history of English literature, both in characteristics and famous author of the era. The writer in each era can be woman or man, and sometimes, for some era there is dominated by women or men writers. Most of the authors write their works based on their experiences and emotions. The literary works mostly about political, cultural, and religion. What is the next plan after joining this class? After joining this class, my plan is I want to improving my comprehension about the history of literature because this class dawned on me that every era is changing in culture, politics, government, and social circumstance. That's all. I hope you enjoy for all my videos about the history of English literature and thank you for watching. Bye.